You know that feeling when you scroll through your old phone numbers and you realize that most of them probably won't pick up anymore? It's a bit heartbreaking, isn't it? What do you do when your circle of friends starts to disappear? If you're over 60, this might be a reality you're facing right now. And let me tell you, you're not alone. Many people in their 60s and beyond find themselves in similar situations, wondering where all their friends have gone. Maybe you've picked up the phone, hesitated and thought, will they even remember me? Or maybe you felt a pang of sadness seeing an old photo from a time when your social life felt full and vibrant. Today, we're diving into a topic that hits close to home for so many of us. When friends fade away, it's something that happens more often as we age, and it can leave us feeling lost, lonely, or even a bit adrift. But here's the good news. There are ways to cope and even thrive despite these changes. You don't have to feel stuck or alone, and by the end of this video, I hope you'll feel a little more hopeful and empowered to navigate this part of life. Why does this matter so much? Well, friendships are like the glue that holds our emotional world together, especially as we get older. They give us someone to laugh with, to share our worries with, or just to sit quietly with over a cup of coffee. Research backs this up. Studies show that strong social connections can boost our mental health, lower stress, and even help us live longer. One study even found that people with close friendships have stronger immune systems. So when those connections start to slip away, it's not just a small inconvenience. It can affect our well-being in big ways. That's why it's so important to understand what's happening and what we can do about it. In this video, we're going to walk through why friendships tend to fade as we age, how that loss feels emotionally, and, most importantly, practical steps you can take to cope with the loneliness and build new connections. We'll share stories, insights, and tips to help you feel more connected and supported, no matter where you are in life. By the end, I hope you'll see that, while losing friends is tough, it's not the end of your social story. You can write new chapters filled with meaningful relationships. Let's start with the first piece of the puzzle. Why do friends fade away as we get older? There are a few reasons, and understanding them can help us make sense of what's happening. One big reason is geographical distance. As we age, people move for all sorts of reasons. Maybe to be closer to their kids or grandkids, to find a warmer climate that's easier on their joints, or to downsize to a smaller home. When a friend moves across the country, staying in touch gets trickier. Sure, we can call or video chat, but if you're like me, you might find those don't quite replace a good old-fashioned coffee date. And if technology isn't your strong suit, it can feel like an even bigger barrier. Another reason is that life circumstances change. Think about when you were younger. Maybe you had friends from work, your kids' school events, or a local club. Those settings naturally brought you together. But when you retire, or when your kids grow up, those built-in social networks often disappear. Your interests might shift too. Maybe you used to bond over golf, but now you're more into gardening or reading. Your friend, on the other hand, might be off traveling or taking up new hobbies. Suddenly, the things that connected you don't align as much anymore, and you might drift apart without even realizing it. Health issues can also play a big role. As we age, we might deal with things like arthritis, vision problems, or other conditions that make it harder to get out and socialize. The same might be true for our friends. They could be facing their own health challenges, which can limit their ability to meet up or stay engaged. It's not that anyone's doing anything wrong, it's just that life throws these curveballs and they can quietly pull us apart. And then there's the hardest reason of all, losing friends to death. As we get older, this becomes more common, and it's never easy. Whether it's a sudden loss or after a long illness, the absence of a friend who's been part of your life for decades can feel like losing a piece of yourself. It's a reality that many of us face, and it's okay to admit that it hurts deeply. Understanding these reasons, distance, changing lives, health, and loss, can help us see that this isn't about us failing or doing something wrong. It's a natural part of aging, but that doesn't mean it's easy to accept. So what does it feel like when these friendships start to fade? That brings us to the emotional side of things. Losing a friend, whether they've moved away, drifted apart, or passed on, can hit you like a wave. It's not just about missing their company, it's about grieving the shared history you had. Maybe you're reminded of that time you laughed until you cried over a silly misunderstanding, or the late-night talks when you helped each other through tough times. Those memories are precious, and when the person tied to them is no longer there, it can feel like a part of your story is gone too. Experts, like those at Blue Moon Senior Counseling, point out that grief in older adults is often overlooked, but it's a very real and valid experience. This loss can also bring on loneliness, especially if your social circle is already small. Maybe you're used to having a group to meet up with, and now you're spending more evenings alone. If you've also gone through other big changes, like losing a spouse, moving to a new town, or retiring, that loneliness can feel even heavier. It's not uncommon to feel isolated, like you're on the outside looking in at a world that's moving on without you. There's another layer too. Losing friends can shake your confidence. You might start to wonder, did I do something to push them away? Or am I not interesting anymore? These thoughts can creep in and chip away at your self-esteem. If they linger, they might even lead to feelings of depression or anxiety about the future. It's important to know that these reactions are normal. Grieving a friendship in any form is a legitimate emotional response, and you're not overreacting if you're feeling this way. Let me share a story to bring this home. I know someone named Margaret who's in her late 70s. She was always the life of the party in her community, volunteering at the local library, hosting book club meetings, you name it. But over the years, many of her closest friends either passed away or moved to be near their families. Margaret found herself feeling more and more alone. She missed the daily phone calls, the spontaneous lunches, the feeling of being part of something. It wasn't easy, but she took a brave step and joined a senior center. There, she started meeting new people, taking art classes, and slowly rebuilding her social life. Margaret's story shows that while losing friends is painful, it's possible to find new connections that bring joy. For now, we've talked about why friendships fade and how that loss can feel emotionally. Next, we'll dive into how to cope with these changes. The first step is often giving yourself permission to feel what you're feeling, whether it's sadness, anger, or confusion. Acknowledging those emotions is a powerful part of healing, but it doesn't stop there. We'll also explore practical ways to nurture the friendships you still have and open the door to new ones. Because here's the truth. While friendships may fade, it's never too late to create new bonds and fill your life with meaningful connections. Let's keep this conversation going because I know how heavy it can feel when friends start to slip away. We've already talked about why this happens. Things like distance, life changes, health challenges, or even losing someone to death. We also touched on how those losses hit us emotionally, stirring up grief, loneliness, or even self-doubt. But now let's shift gears and focus on what you can do to navigate this season of life. It's not about pretending the pain isn't there, but about finding ways to move through it and rediscover joy and connection. And trust me, you're stronger than you might think. You've got the resilience to handle this. The first thing to do is give yourself permission to grieve. That might sound simple, but it's so important. Losing a friend, whether they've moved across the country or passed away, is a real loss, and it deserves to be acknowledged. You don't have to brush it off or tell yourself, "Oh, I should be over this by now." Imagine if you lost a family member. People would expect you to feel sad, right? The same applies here. Maybe you're missing the way your friend used to make you laugh, or how they always knew just what to say. Let yourself sit with those feelings. Cry if you need to, journal about your memories, or even talk to someone you trust about what you're going through. Acknowledging your emotions doesn't make you weak. It's a brave step toward healing. One thing that helped a woman named Dorothy, who's in her late 60s, was writing letters to her friend who had passed away. She'd sit down with a cup of tea and write about old memories, things she wished she'd said, or just how much she missed her. She never sent the letters, but putting those feelings on paper gave her a sense of closure. It was like having one last conversation. You don't have to write letters, but find a way to honor what you're feeling. Maybe it's looking through old photos or sharing a story about your friend with someone else. The key is to let those emotions flow instead of bottling them up. Once you've given yourself space to grieve, it's time to think about nurturing the connections you still have. Sometimes when we're feeling lonely, we forget about the people who are still in our lives. Maybe there's a neighbor you chat with occasionally, a family member you haven't called in a while, or even an old acquaintance you've lost touch with. Reaching out doesn't have to be a big deal. It can be as simple as a phone call to say, "Hey, I was just thinking about you." Small gestures like that can rekindle a connection and remind you that you're not as alone as you might feel. Let me tell you about Frank, a 72-year-old retiree I heard about. After his best friend moved to another state, Frank felt like his social life had dried up. He wasn't sure what to do, but he noticed he'd been having nice chats with a guy at his local coffee shop. One day he took a chance and said, "You know, we should grab a coffee together sometime." That small step led to a regular meetup, and now they're good friends who look forward to their weekly talks. Frank didn't need to make a grand gesture, just a little effort to build on what was already there. Think about your own life. Who's someone you could reach out to? Maybe it's a cousin, a former coworker, or even someone you see at church. Start small, and you might be surprised at how those connections grow. Now here's where things get really exciting. Opening the door to new friendships. I know. It can feel daunting to make new friends when you're over 60. You might think, "I'm too old for this," or "everyone already has their own circle." But let me assure you, that's not true. People of all ages crave connection, and there are folks out there who'd love to get to know you. The trick is finding ways to meet them naturally in settings where you feel comfortable. One great way to start is by leaning into your interests. What do you enjoy doing? Maybe you love reading, gardening, or playing cards. Look for local groups or activities tied to those passions. Many communities have senior centers, libraries, or community colleges that offer classes or clubs. Think book clubs, art workshops, or even exercise groups like Tai Chi. These are gold mines for meeting people who share your interests. When you're doing something you love, conversations flow more easily, and friendships can form without feeling forced. I heard about a woman named Susan, who's 68 and always loved painting. After losing touch with several friends, she felt isolated. On a whim, she signed up for a watercolor class at her local community center. At first, she was nervous. She hadn't painted in years and she didn't know anyone. But over a few weeks, she started chatting with the other folks in the class. They'd share tips, laugh about their mistakes, and eventually started meeting up outside of class for coffee. Now, Susan has a small group of artist friends who've brought so much joy back into her life. Her story shows that taking one small step, like signing up for a class, can open doors you didn't expect. If you're not sure where to start, check out your local senior center or community board. Many offer activities designed for folks over 60, from knitting circles to walking groups. If mobility is an issue, look into online groups. There are virtual book clubs, discussion forums, or even Zoom-based hobby groups. The key is to take that first step, even if it feels a bit scary. You don't have to commit to anything huge, just show up once and see how it feels. Another way to build new connections is through volunteering. Not only does it give you a chance to meet people, but it also brings a sense of purpose, which can be a real antidote to loneliness. Whether it's helping at a food bank, reading to kids at a library, or even mentoring younger folks in your community, volunteering puts you in touch with others who care about the same things you do. Plus, it feels good to give back, and that boost in mood can make it easier to connect. I want to pause for a moment and acknowledge that making new friends isn't always easy. If you're shy or dealing with health challenges, it can feel like a mountain to climb. That's okay. Go at your own pace. Even small interactions, like chatting with the cashier at the grocery store or saying hello to someone at the park, can help you feel more connected over time. Those little moments add up, and they remind you that you're part of a bigger world. We've talked about grieving, nurturing current relationships, and making new connections, all key steps in healing and overcoming loneliness. But there's more to this journey, like caring for your emotional well-being and enjoying your own company. Sometimes the most important relationship is the one you have with yourself. Next, we'll explore how to embrace that and create a full, meaningful life, even as your social circle changes. As we keep this conversation flowing, I hope you're starting to see that while losing friends is one of the toughest parts of aging, it doesn't have to define your story. We've talked about why friendships fade, things like moves, health challenges, or the deep pain of losing someone to death. We've also explored how to process those emotions by giving yourself space to grieve, nurturing the connections you still have, and bravely stepping into new opportunities to meet people. Now let's wrap this up by focusing on how to care for your emotional well-being and find joy in your own company, because building a fulfilling life starts with you. Plus, we'll touch on one more way to keep loneliness at bay so you can feel connected and hopeful no matter what. One of the most powerful things you can do is invest in your relationship with yourself. That might sound a little funny at first, but hear me out. When friends fade away, it's easy to feel like a piece of you is missing, like you're not whole without those connections. But you are enough just as you are. Taking time to enjoy your own company can be incredibly freeing and can help ease the sting of loneliness. Think about it. When was the last time you did something just for you, something that made your heart sing? Maybe it's listening to your favorite music, trying a new recipe, or even sitting outside with a good book. Those moments of self-care aren't just nice, they're essential for your emotional health. Let me share a story about a man named George, who's 74. After losing his closest friend to illness, George felt lost. He'd always been a social guy, but suddenly his days felt empty. One day, he decided to dust off an old guitar he hadn't played in years. He started spending a few minutes each day strumming, teaching himself songs he loved as a kid. At first, it was just a way to pass the time, but soon he realized how much joy it brought him. Playing music became a way to reconnect with himself, and it gave him a sense of purpose. Eventually, he even joined a local music group and made new friends, but the real gift was discovering that he could find happiness on his own. What's something you've always wanted to try or rediscover? It doesn't have to be big. It could be knitting, writing poetry, or even watching a classic movie. Those small acts of self-love can make a huge difference. Another key to staying emotionally strong is practicing mindfulness. Now, I know that word gets thrown around a lot, but it's really just about being present in the moment. When you're feeling lonely, your mind might spiral into thoughts like, "I'll always be alone," or "I've lost everyone who matters." Mindfulness helps you pause those thoughts and focus on what's right in front of you. One simple way to start is with a 5-minute breathing exercise. Sit comfortably, close your eyes if you want, and take slow, deep breaths. Notice the air moving in and out, the way your chest rises and falls. If your mind wanders, gently bring it back to your breath. Doing this regularly can calm your mind and help you feel more grounded. It's like giving your heart a little hug, reminding you that you're okay in this moment. You can also try gratitude to shift your perspective. When loneliness creeps in, it's easy to focus on what's missing, but taking a moment to notice what's still good can be a game changer. Maybe it's the warmth of a sunny day, a kind word from a neighbor, or even the fact that you're here, watching this video, taking steps to care for yourself. Try writing down 3 things each day that brought you a bit of joy or comfort. They don't have to be grand. It could be a delicious cup of tea or a funny moment on TV. Over time, this habit can help you see your life in a brighter light, even when things feel heavy. Now let's talk about one more way to keep loneliness at bay: staying open to unexpected connections. Sometimes the most meaningful relationships come from places you'd never expect. It might not be the deep, decades-long friendships you're used to, but shorter, lighter connections can still bring so much warmth. For example, think about the people you see regularly but don't know well. Maybe the librarian who always smiles when you check out a book, or the person you nod to at the grocery store. Striking up a small conversation with them can plant the seed for something more. A simple, "How's your day going?" or "I love your scarf. Where'd you get it?" can open the door to a friendly chat. Those moments might not turn into lifelong friendships, but they remind you that you're part of a community. As we wrap up, I want to remind you of the journey we've been on together. Losing friends as we age is painful, and it's okay to feel the weight of that. But you have the power to navigate this chapter with grace and strength. By giving yourself space to grieve, reaching out to the people still in your life, seeking out new connections through hobbies or volunteering, and nurturing your relationship with yourself, you can build a life that feels full and meaningful. It's not about replacing the friends you've lost. Those memories will always hold a special place. It's about adding new moments of joy and connection to your story. You're not alone in this, and you don't have to have it all figured out right away. Start with one small step. Maybe call someone you haven't talked to in a while, sign up for a class, or just spend a few minutes doing something you love. Those steps add up, and they can lead you to places you never expected. I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and share what you're going through or any tips you found helpful. Your story might inspire someone else watching this. And if you found this video helpful, please give it a like and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss more content like this. Here's to finding new connections, cherishing old memories, and living a life that's rich with meaning at any age. You've got this.